for my ladies on here that are looking to, settle down with a masculine energy provider man, live the average American dream lifestyle of finding a partner, settling down, getting married, and building a family together, this one is going to be for you. And just some things that you need to keep in mind when you are wanting to be a feminine woman who chooses either to be at home full time or be at home only for a season of having kids, or not even have kids at all. Because remember, my content and my teachings and advice is all based around you becoming your most healed, authentic self, embodying your utmost feminine energy, pulling in, attracting real masculine provider men, what that looks like, signs and signals of it, and just living an overall healthy lifestyle. And that is regardless of whether you work a career, you generate your own income, or you decide that you just want to be at home and take care of kids and rely solely on your husband to provide for you, because this goes either way. And remember, I come from generations of women who were stay-at-home moms who never really worked. If they did, it was for very, very short seasons of times. But most of their life, they just relied on their husbands to provide for them. And so that history in me is still very, very much programmed and ingrained in me. And obviously getting to see and witness that firsthand, I have a lot of insight that a lot of people around me do not have. And I get to see it firsthand even right now, because I still have a sister that I'm very close to who lives that same kind of lifestyle. Many women in my family, but especially her. She is currently working on her third child. She does not work. She has not worked in many, many years. Her kids are very, very young. She's just the kind of wife that is like, if she gets pregnant, she gets pregnant. She doesn't try to prevent it. She doesn't plan for it. It just happens, which is actually it's kind of funny because it's literally a mirror of how my mom and dad went about things. So anyway, the point here is this one is for those of you who want that, because I realize that even though I'm unique and different in the way that I don't care about living that traditional life or building the American dream of, settling down, finding a husband, oh, hi Suri, and having a bunch of kids. I don't have that dream. However, I am fully aware that that is most women's main priority and goal in life. And even the women that say that they, want to, pursue their career and be really successful in their business and whatnot, most of them, they're just following what everybody else is doing. They don't actually mean that. Now, of course, there are women who truly do mean that, because they don't want a very traditional, average lifestyle of getting married and having kids, because that is a calling. But it's not a calling for everyone. And overall, my message on here has always been that it's okay either way that you choose. Whichever way that you decide, you can still embrace and embody your full feminine energy, being in your utmost receiving feminine energy mode, attracting in great provider men, regardless of whether you want that or whether you don't and you want to make your own income and, have a career for yourself. It's all about the energy that you carry walking through life. So for my ladies who do want that, and you've done some inner healing work, you've attracted a really great man in your life. He provides, even if he only can provide all of the basics, the evolutionary basics, the main necessities of survival, you are going to, from then on, you'll start building your life out from there. So that's the first step, is first embodying your feminine so that you can open yourself up to attracting great provider men who also want that same lifestyle. The ones that you share similar goals and values with. because you have to have aligned values. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. That's why the Bible talks about, not being unequally yoked in partnerships. So anyways, the first thing in, if you are choosing that path, is when you are coming together with this guy and, maybe you're engaged to him, maybe you're already married, maybe you're taking the next step of getting married, having kids and growing your family. If you are a woman who currently works, but you wish to start a family, then when you're out shopping for homes and deciding on where you want to live, what country you want to live in, what city you want to live in, there's a lot of factors to factor into that. And a very important one is that you don't want to filter in your income when you're finding a place to live. If you want to have a work optional life, then why would you want to filter in your income to the areas and the places, homes, apartment buildings that you are going to live in? So you might have to make sacrifices in that area. Like if an area, if your husband's income only allows that, that you live somewhere on the outskirts of the city, right? Rather than living in the heart of a city, because it is more expensive in those areas, then you will have to take that into account. You might not have the utmost convenience, but you're going to have a lower cost of living on the outskirts of cities rather than living in the heart of where everything is happening. Because you have to have grace and understanding for, a husband that is generally a good guy. He wants to be able to provide for you. He wants you to, be at home when you start having kids, or be at home whenever it is that you wish. Like most women, they want to have the option to work or not to work. That is true femininity, is embracing the freedom of having to, whether she wants to clock in to a job or not, and just be at home and, stay close to family. So you might have to, let go of the picture perfect Instagram marble countertops in this dream home that you see right in the heart of the city of your state, because your husband's income might not allow for that budget, right? And you might have the budget for it together on both of your incomes, but remember, you're not going into it assuming that you're going to supplement any income or pay for any of the bills, because you want the option of not worrying about that at all. There's a lot of content out there on social media, and of course there's a lot of great content, a lot of great relationship and dating coaches, a lot of great life coaches. But there's also, of course, content that is satirical. It is just for chasing clout. It is just to, attract a lot of eyes and ears, and to maybe start a movement, right? And so a lot of times in the dating and man and provider, attracting provider men kind of world, you see a lot of content or just, photos with words on it. And those can tend to be taken completely out of context, or just simply something to, stir up a controversy. And what I'm particularly talking about is, the girlies on there that are, talking about like how rich your man needs to be, and he needs to be providing this and this, and they're showing their lifestyle, and they're showing all of their designer handbags because they ended up attracting a guy who happens to be in the top 1%, top 10%, who make a larger, more astronomical income compared to the average American family, right? And so because that is so rare, people tend to be really drawn to that energy of abundance, that energy of being able to manifest money so easily, and just be in that rare percentage of people who do very, very well, and reach the status of millionaire or multimillionaire. And so because that is so rare, people tend to flock to that, right? But though, yes, those kinds of women, they do attract a lot of attention, but unfortunately a lot of them send out the message to, you know, how to attract those kinds of men when it's just math. The math doesn't even math up, right? Those kinds of men aren't available for every single woman. That's just the case. That's just the matter of the fact, right? Actually, women outnumber men in the areas of college graduates and you know, generating lots of money. Like, women outnumber men in that department, unfortunately, in today's society because of feminism. And so a lot of women can tend to blindly follow this because they're fantasizing that this particular girl on the internet can give them that lifestyle. They can give them all the tips and tactics and techniques to attract that kind of man and that kind of lifestyle, when in reality the deeper part of it is that you want to attract the energy behind that, but you don't necessarily need to attract this guy right off the bat, you know, at your age of 25 that is making multi-millions of dollars and he happens to be, you know, 30 years old. That's just not that's not the reality. And so you tend to live in this fantasy world through your social media accounts of thinking that that is what is going to be handed to you, that you get to have a rich, successful, multimillionaire guy who, you know, you live this lavish lifestyle and all your friends get to be jealous, and then you go on and you get to create content about it, right? And that's great. You maybe have the power to manifest that for yourself. But the reality is, like I said, is that that just doesn't exist for every woman. And to be honest, most women, they don't care about that, right? They care about something that is so much deeper. And so point overall is that I don't want you to blindly follow this and, you know, unable to then recognize what you might have in front of you, because you might have a guy that is so amazing. He, you know, provides for you in all the ways that he can. He is so generous. He loves to buy you gifts. He spoils you. You know, he takes you out every weekend or every other weekend for dates. You know, he is always there for you when he needs. He's emotionally available to you. He shows up consistently. Like, he's just this overall really great guy in front of you, and he pursues you because he really cares about you and your heart. But maybe he doesn't have multi-millions. Maybe he doesn't have this lavish travel lifestyle with marble countertops that you are fantasizing about because you're comparing yourself to these random girls across the nation on social media. And so it's just wrong advice for some of these girls. And not all of them do this, but some of these girls are just like, leave your man if he can't give you this. Leave your man if he doesn't make, you know, $500,000 at least a year. Leave your man if he doesn't buy you a Chanel bag every quarter. If he's not doing this for you, then you need to go find another one, right? And like, that's just poor advice, because sure, in certain situations, if you are in an abusive relationship, or maybe you just feel called to leave a certain relationship and go pursue something else out of your genuine, you know, pull and genuine calling to do so. But most often that's not the case. A lot of times, like, you ladies already have these great men. Maybe you already have kids for them, whether you're married or unmarried, because, you know, most of the time we do things backwards. We have children outside of wedlock. And so maybe you are not married to this guy, but you already have kids for him. And it's not in your best interest to just jump from a relationship into another relationship with some guy who maybe makes a little bit more income than your previous guy. But maybe he's gone a lot more. You know, maybe he doesn't have the free time that your partner, the father of your children had for you, because maybe this guy who's making a lot more money doesn't have as much time to be generous with. Maybe he just has to put in more hours in the workforce in order to generate that kind of income and sustain it. And so then that is where you kind of have to figure out, where do your priorities lie? What are your values? What do you want? A guy who's present with you, present with your kids? Because you would want that if you want the average American life of growing your family. You would want a guy to be present and actually there to raise his children. Unless he cracks the code of, owning a business and then just generating his income passively, which again is more rare. There's a small ratio of guys who are doing that and have cracked that code. Then the reality is that that's just not reality. You know what I'm saying? Here in America, there is a crisis of being paid very low wages and not making enough money compared to the cost of living. And that is a very, very real issue here. And that is honestly what has driven all of politics today, okay? The average young family can't even afford to buy a home currently, because it's $500,000 for like a small 2-bedroom house, right? And so this is very, very real. But then these jobs are paying, they're paying people $75,000 a year on average, and charging $500,000 for these homes. And then all the issues of taxes and how you're just outrageously taxed on every single thing that you purchase. It's a real crisis here, okay? So not to dive too much into that topic, because yes, that's a whole ball game, a different ball game. But this is the reality here, right? And so this is very relevant to the conversation, because how can you realistically follow the advice of, oh, drop your man, get a new man, because he doesn't take you to Europe every summer and he doesn't buy you Chanel bags every quarter, right? When the reality is that most guys, and you ladies who are younger, who want to stay more in your age bracket of 5 to 10 years older, those guys have not hit their prime in generating their finances and figuring it all out and having their ducks in order in the area of finances. So again, the math doesn't math, and most of this advice is very poor advice, because how are you supposed to find a guy who is, let's say, 30 to 35, if you're a lady in your 20s, 30 to 35, or 25 to 37, let's say, for those of you who want to stay close to in your age range, right? Who has all of those things. Like, you're not going to just leave your guy and just magically end up in a relationship with a new guy who does give you all of these lavish things, when the general most common crisis here is that most young people can't afford to buy a home, and they have to live in apartments and rent for, most of their 20-year-old life, right? And let me tell you, yes, I date older guys, and so I have the access to these guys who already have homes, because they're a lot older. So obviously when they were younger is when they purchased these homes, and purchasing a home then was a lot easier and a lot more sustainable and affordable than it is today. And also, those homes that they purchased were also built a lot greater, right? They were actually built to last. And so I do have the personal access to these guys who already have homes to provide to me, right? Because I go older. But again, I am in a very small percentage of women. I am in a very small group, recognizing that I do date older, okay? Most women are not comfortable dating in the age range that I do, but I also don't wish to have babies, right? So it is a complete, like, you have to view it as a completely different goal path that we're on. And so the goal here is not to supplement your income in order to be able to provide anything if you do plan to have children. Now, of course, if you don't plan to have children, you can maybe supplement your income, find out which ways that you are okay in providing. You know, maybe if your husband can pay the mortgage on a house, he can pay all the bills, right? All the basic necessities of survival, but maybe he can't afford to take you shopping every weekend because he's younger and he's still building his career and he's still moving up in his career. Maybe he can afford to give you all the basics of survival and paying for all of your meals and stuff, but he can't afford to buy the vacations, and you might have to work in order to supplement those things for yourself. Then that's okay too, right? But instead, you're comparing yourself to a random girl that you found on social media who has all of those things, or maybe is just lying. You know, maybe, you know, there is huge possibility that a lot of these girls are either lying, or maybe not even lying, but maybe just not expressing the whole truth to you because they're trying to present a facade to you, because it is social media and only extremities gain attention, right? You know what's funny is that, like, when I first started my relationship and dating content, girls that I knew just from around my community and whatnot, I would hear sometimes they would say, like, when they were talking about me and my content in person or whatever, and maybe telling one of their friends about it, they would always jump to the conclusion, oh, like, or the assumption, oh, yeah, she talks about how to get a rich man and how to attract a rich man. And honestly, I would get triggered at first when this first started coming up, because people don't really, they don't have the substance to be able to really think hard about that, what that means, right? Everybody has their definition of rich. What is rich to you? Would you rather be rich in experience? Would you rather be rich in the quality of time and the quality of experiences that you get to have with your forever partner? Or would you rather just be swimming in money and not have any of the other things, right? Or you can be rich in all of those ways. You can be rich in experience, rich in a great quality guy partnership. You can be rich in money too. Like, one doesn't have to exist without the other, but that's not to negate the fact that one can and does exist without the other. And I hope that this is making sense to you. But when I would hear that, I would realize that these people don't have the substance, or they don't even understand. They don't listen in to what the message here actually is. They're just looking for a quick dopamine hit. But it is truly so much deeper, and it is a huge misrepresentation of what it means for a man to provide, and you being able to receive all of his provision and protection that he has for you, and opening yourself up to the energy and abundance of that. This content presents you with reasons as to why a man wants to provide, why you should be with a man who provide, the history and the background on that, the science of it, right? The psychological aspect, the evolutionary aspect, the hormonal aspect, why all of those things, how they all come together in order to create this beautiful gift that we have as women of receiving a man's provision and protection, and like why that is the wisest decision to make as a woman. So yeah, you might end up later in life, when you are older and your kids are a little more grown, becoming wealthier and becoming wiser in your finances, right? Because that's typically what happens. And typically, you know, older couples and older guys, particularly talking about here, that's when they really, you know, acquire assets and resources and create generational wealth for themselves, their wives, their children, their families, right? So you don't have to have that all right away while you're 22, 25, 30 years old wanting to start your family. You just have to start and allow that all to come organically later in life as you grow old with your spouse. I mean, my sister and her husband, you know, he's a full provider. She doesn't work. And they make ends meet. They make well. They have all their basic necessities. They don't go on lavish vacations. They go on, vacations maybe once or twice a year that they can drive to. But he also has his own business, and he has a very, very high value skill. So I know eventually later in life, they are going to be very successful, because a woman will multiply what she has been given. And he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. She doesn't need to focus on all the lavish and luxuries of life, because she's having her babies and raising them and making sure that they are homeschooled, so that way they don't have to go into the public school system. These older guys also, they don't become very fruitful and at their highest peak of resources and wealth until they reach about 45, 50, 60, maybe even older. And so some of these messages that those girlies who are making this content are putting out for the clout, sometimes that can be very triggering and activating to those women who have more of that save me complex. Like, they fantasize about finding this almighty, powerful, wealthy guy to save them from maybe their financial situations, maybe their financial burdens, maybe their debts. And that might not be all of you girls, but it does. It activates the save me complex for some of these women who are already so vulnerable to that. And we all know that having a save me complex doesn't exactly breed healthy dynamics in masculine feminine relationships. We as women, we still have to contribute to some way, to some extent in society, whether that is contributing to making income and starting a business and helping other people in having their resources, or maybe it's being a mom and raising good children who go on to do great things, or maybe it's like me, where we have a voice and a message to put out to the world to help enlighten other people, help other people wake up, help other people build their relationship with God. And to be honest, the more that I grow in myself, I'm not going to say that I don't care about a guy having money for me, right? But the more that I care about myself building something that matters, myself acquiring wealth, myself having those things that we once only could rely on men to have for us. Because we do live in a modern day and age where we women have the access to that. We have the access and resources to be able to pass down our own generational wealth. And you may not want that, and you may not have any aspirations to achieve that, and that is perfectly okay. Okay, I'm going to shut up now. This video is getting way too long. Leave a comment down below if this resonated with you, and I'll see you guys in the next video.